start our session today on the first lecture on as for physiology students for non-Arabic speakers in Badr University, BUC, Badr University in Cairo. So, firstly, we are going to talk about physiology. What is physiology and what is the study of physiology? Physiology is the studying of the functions of the human body. So, we study the structure in a subject called anatomy, but for the function, we study physiology. So we answer two main questions. The first question is how this action or how this function is done and why is it done? Why the molecules or the object move from inside the cell to the outside of the cell or from the outside to the inside and how that happens? Why the liver produces such enzymes and how does it produces that and so on so the function has many levels. Since the discovery of the microscopes and the discovery of the advanced technology, we could be able to discover the function of the at the level of the biological molecule, the cellular organelle, the cells, the tissue, the organs, and the whole body. So when I say the whole body, how a person sleeps, I examine the function, the sleeping function. How does he sleep and why does he sleep as the whole body? But I can go deeper than that. How sleep happens in the CNS, the central nervous system. That's a certain system. How sleep happens in the brain. That's an organ. How does it happen in the neural tissue? How does it happen in the neuron, the single cell? How does it happen inside the cell and at the level of the molecule? That's the study in different levels. So, body systems are divided according to their functions. So there is circulatory system, respiratory system, digestive system, urinary system, musculoskeletal, immune, nervous, endocrine, reproductive, integumentary. Throughout the years in the medical field, we will study those systems thoroughly. So you can know each system, what does it consist of, and what is its function. So, for example, as for the respiratory, we have the bronchus, the lungs, and their functions. As for the circulatory, we have the heart and the vessels. For the urinary, there is the kidney and the bladder, and so on. So for now, we discuss the topic. Uh, for this small introductory lecture, we are going just to discuss the systems as a whole. So for the circulatory, we have heart, blood vessels, blood function of those systems. This part, to be honest, is more as an introductory to the science, the physiology science. But it is nearly impossible that you will have a question that says, what does the circulatory system consist of? Because that's an easy question. When I ask, can you answer me? Can you think what does the digestive system consist of as in for an organ, for in the terms of organs?
Can I hear you?
The digestive system, what
Okay.
does it consist of?
The digestive system.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, I hear you. Do you know? Do you have an idea, or can you guess what does the digestive system consist of?
The mouth.
Yes, you can say so. You can say it consists of mouth, tubes, esophagus, stomach, intestine, and so on. So, and what does what does the digestive system do? It is in its name. It is called digestive system. So its function is digesting food, and so on. So respiratory system, nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, lungs. Its function is exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen and the exchange of hydrogen ions and concentration. Digestive system, yes, mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, intestine, salivary gland, pancreas, liver, gallbladder, digestion and absorption. Urinary system, kidneys, ureter, bladder, and urethra. And its function is regulation of plasma composition through excretion of salts and water and organic waste. Musculoskeletal, and that's part of main parts you work on as a physiotherapist. It consists of cartilage, bones, ligaments, tendons, joints, skeletal muscles, and its functions are support, protection, movements of body. What does you do with your muscles? You support your body, you move your joints, and so on. So immune system, yes, white blood cells, the immunity of the body, and its function is immunity, defensive against pathogens. Nervous system, brain, spinal cords, nerve. It's in its name. It's
Short sense of order.
yes, exactly. Regulation, coordination, sensation, motor function, and so on. Endocrine. Endocrines are the glands which secretes hormones, and examples are pancreas, pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, and adrenal. Those functions are regulation and coordination of many activities in the body, including growth, metabolism, reproduction, blood pressure, and electrolyte balance, and others. As for reproductive system, for males we have testes and penis and associated ducts and glands. As for females we have ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, vagina, and mammary glands, and their functions are to reproduce through sperms in males and ovaries in females, and fertilization in okay, يعني the combination of both. As
Okay.
for the integumentary system, we have skin and sweat gland, and their functions are protection against injuries and foreign body and temperature. So, we discussed the systems as a whole, but now we are going to discuss the cell as the structural and functional units of living organisms. So, we have a cell. That cell has a nucleus. As for each system we discussed before, that system is going to have a structural and function unit, and that unit is the cell. That cell function is that cell is the basic structure that will with other cells will be the unit which make the whole system, the whole organism. So the cell
Okay.
contains nuclear membrane surrounding the nucleus, and membrane-bound organelle structures that such as organelles, and each one do a certain function. That's a summary. To be honest, the cell as a structure is going to discussed and studied more thoroughly in the histology, not in physiology. But as for
Okay.
function, can go rapidly through the organelle. The
Okay.
nucleus is the main headquarter of the cell. That's the control building of the cell. That what we have the DNA and the management of the whole cell functions in. As for rough ER and ribosomes, those are for production. For smooth ER, we are producing steroids and the detoxification, and mitochondria. If you are going to learn something in medicine, you must know that mitochondria is the powerhouse of cell. So, okay.
Yes, sir.
So, so firstly, we are going to discuss the cell membrane. The cell membrane is the
Yes, sir.
wall that divides the cell into partitions, outside and inside. So we have a wall. That wall divides the cell into outer part and inner part. Okay, so that wall consists of primarily of lipids and proteins. The lipids are phospholipid, cholesterol, and glycolipids. So when I ask you in the exam, mention three lipid structures that are component of cell membrane, you should answer rapidly: phospholipid, cholesterol, and glycolipid.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the fluid mosaic model? We say that the cell membrane is not a rigid structure, is not a wall. It is something fluid. It is something that moves with the uh, with the fluidity of the cell. So there is a pattern of the scattered protein in the cell membrane. That pattern of the scattered protein adds certain rigidity and characteristic of the cell wall, and also affects the fluidity of the liquidity of the cell membrane. So that's the
Routine
first
functions.
important question in our lecture today, because in our lecture today we are going to divide the topics into category A, category B, and category C.
Category C.
Yes. Category A is that the part that highly يعني going highly what we are going to say that's mostly are going to come in the exam, and that's a common question. Here is category A question: protein function. When I ask you what is the protein functions in the cell membrane, you should mention those 6 functions: transport, enzymatic activity, signal transduction, intercellular joining, cell to cell recognition, and attachment to cytoskeleton. What is that? Transport. The protein in the cell membrane can transport things from outside the cell into inside the cell, and from inside the cell
Okay.
to outside the cell. That's the transport function. Enzymatic activity. Enzymes are proteins. So when there is an enzyme in the cell membrane that can do enzymatic activity, that's also a function of the protein in the cell membrane. Signal transduction. Inside the cell is totally separated from outside the cell. How can an order reaches from outside to inside? That's the function of the protein in the cell membrane. It transduces the signal from outside to inside. As for intracellular joining, the intercellular joining, that's when two cells join into a channel between them. That's called intercellular joining. We are going to discuss that later, or I think it's going to be discussed more thoroughly in histology. As for now, I just want you to know the name without any further details. Cell
Okay.
to cell recognition: when there is a cell that's foreign to the body, when there is a cell of a bacteria, of a pathogen, of a foreign body that enters the body, how can the immunity, the white cells, the white BCs, identify, recognize the self cells? According to the protein in the cell membrane, things happen called cell to cell recognition or cell recognition. The cell comes and handshakes with the other protein on the cell membranes and say, "Who are you?" Just tell me when the other cell recognize the protein on the cell. Oh, you are a self cell. You are not a foreign pathogen. It's okay. I will not cause any harm. Last but not least, يعني last thing is to mention is attachment to the cytoskeleton and extracellular matrix. The cell itself is not floating in space inside the body. There is a matrix outside called extracellular matrix and a matrix inside called cytoskeleton inside. The cell membrane attached into both, attaches the outside and inside to make the cell fixed into the structures of the body. Again, what is the nucleus? It's the control center of the cell. The nucleus contains nuclear envelope, contains the nuclei, chromatin, gene-containing center. So the function is stores and transmission of genetic information in the form of DNA. So the cell, the control center, has the most important information, the most important structure inside the cell. It is called DNA. The DNA is stored and transmitted genetic information inside the nucleus. When I ask you what is the function of the nucleus, you say store and transmit of genetic information. When I ask you what does the nucleus contain, you rapidly answer genetic information and of the DNA.
Okay.
Okay.
Understand.
Mitochondria. What is the function of the mitochondria? Powerhouse of cell, the energy production center inside the cell. So when you ask any person in the street what is the function of the mitochondria, if he is in the medical field, he will surely say the powerhouse of the cell, the source of energy production. So the function of the mitochondria is the major site of ATP production, and the ATP is the universal currency of energy. All cells use ATP in the energy producing, and that happens through oxygen utilization, carbon dioxide production, and that also happens through something called Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation. You can summarize the whole function in the word energy production and then describe it in details. as in the Krebs cycle, ATP production, auto-utilization, and so on and so on. What is the structure of the mitochondria? It is oval-shaped or rod-like. It is having double membrane, so membrane outside and membrane inside, and the membrane inside is folded in a something called cisternae. It has a certain shape like this. Those folds is called cisternae. The cisternae is the folds inside. Again, I will show you the other picture. Those folds are called cisternae. The other outside is double membrane, and it also has inside something called ribosomes. Going to the endoplasmic reticulum is divided into smooth endoplasmic and rough endoplasmic. The smooth endoplasmic and rough endoplasmic are function. The rough endoplasmic function is to synthesize of protein sensitization. The smooth endoplasmic function is to steroid production and steroid synthesis, and there is a mistake in this part of the presentation. It is instead of rough, it is smooth endoplasmic. This part is not RER, it is smooth ER. So back to the presentation. The rough ER is a endoplasmic reticulum covered in ribosomes. Its function is protein synthesis. The rough endoplasmic function is protein synthesis. Okay. As for smooth endoplasmic reticulum, function is steroid synthesis plus calcium storage.
Okay.
Ribosome. The ribosome appeared in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and it is site of protein synthesis. And last but not least, the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is described after the name of the scientist Golgi. He is the scientist who discovered this organelle. That organelle has a part what we can call the modifying center. So after the protein is synthesized in Protein is synthesized in two places we mentioned in this lecture. What are they?
Hello?
There are two places that we describe that protein are synthesized in as for organelles. Where are the protein synthesis occurs in the organelles?
In the two places,
Yes.
what?
One is ribosome. Okay. The other
Ribosome.
one is rough endoplasmic reticulum. Again, ribosome protein
Ribosome.
synthesis, and the other one is rough ER. Okay.
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 Rough
So
ER.
after the protein synthesis, that synthesized protein goes to the Golgi apparatus where this protein has modification and sorting. So modification and sorting of proteins occurs in the Golgi apparatus and also packaging to be secreted outside. There are two other organelles called lysosomes and peroxisomes. The lysosomes are a spherical oval organelles that has digestive enzymes. These lysosomes can break down any of the contents of the cell. So if the cell have dead structure like old non-functioning mitochondria, this old mitochondria enters the lysosome to be digested and excreted. As for other organisms like white immune cells, white blood cells, the white blood cells destroys bacteria, so it engulfs the bacteria, it eats the bacteria and break it down with the lysosome. The peroxisomes are organelle bounds that contains hydrogen peroxide. Sorry, it contains it can destroy the hydrogen peroxide and prevent the toxic effect of hydrogen peroxide. What is hydrogen peroxide? Hydrogen peroxide is an active oxide that is produced during the daily function of the cell. So if the cell mistakenly produced hydrogen peroxide, what protects the cell of hydrogen peroxide? The peroxisomes are the one who protects the cell from hydrogen peroxide toxicity, and that's the first lecture fully described and revised. As we mentioned, you can be asked what is the function of the protein in the cell membrane. what is the function of the rough ER or the smooth ER or the ribosome or the mitochondria. This part is not, the whole lecture is not any kind of category A because it's kind of category B or C, but we must revise it. I hope it was helpful. I hope to see you in next lecture, inshallah. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
اتفضل.
I have plenty questions.
Say it out loud. Say it out loud.
Okay. The number one question I want to ask a question: how do cells communicate with each other to maintain body functions?
Cell communicate with each other in many ways. Like this is a cell and this is a cell. They can communicate, as we said earlier, through the protein in the cell membrane. This protein contacts with these proteins, making certain communication between each other. Other things to be
Okay.
communicated through is through enzymes produced in the fluid outside. The last but not least is through hormones. Hormones produce thus a certain type of communication. What is the second question?
The second question is how the lungs and blood work together to supply oxygen efficiently.
We will discuss that thoroughly in the respiratory system and cardiovascular system, but we can summarize that is by the power of Allah the Almighty, that's a blood vessel. We have
No
RBC
problem, inshallah.
walking inside the blood vessel, and we have here what we can call an alveoli. The alveoli is the space inside the lung that air floats in like this. The air, through something called diffusion, comes from here to here and be carried upon the RBCs. The RBCs then moves in the blood and go to supply other organs to the blood. As I said, we will discuss that thoroughly in the respiratory system. We should not
Inshallah.
يعني, move faster than the
Yes, yes.
curriculum. What is the third
Thank you.
question?
No, that is the two questions, inshallah.
Okay. It was a pleasure having you
Thank you
for
so
now.
much, ya doctor.
No need يا حبيبي إن شاء الله. See you soon.